Welcome to the Real Raw Truth Podcast with Robbie Raw and Carrie Spring, a show about living life with intention, meaning, and purpose, mind, body, soul, and spirit.
And hello, welcome to the Real Raw Truth. I'm Robbie Raw.
And I'm Carrie Spring, and today we have Katie Weibel with us.
So excited. Yes, she is from Turning Tides Financial, a very good friend of mine. So welcome, Katie. Yeah. So, before we get started, obviously you do so many things, and it's easier for you to tell people what you do rather than me, because I literally get lost in it.
So a little bit about us. So I'm the managing partner of Turning Tides Financial, and we do financial planning, your traditional financial planning, but not quite the same as your father's financial advisor. So we take a true holistic approach to helping you figure out your money and tailor it to you and your family and what they need and where your goals are and where you want to go. So it's not product sales traditionally. A lot of times companies like insurance companies, they're trying to sell products that are in their toolbox, or advisors that only have a small menu of options. We work for you. We don't work for one company. We figure out what it is that you and your family need, and then we go and help you figure out how to do that, the best way to do that, and what best company to work with for that.
And you have decades of experience along with Julianne. Tell me about your history.
Sure. So Julianne Lipo, my business partner, and myself, we both worked for a very large bank together. Julianne was there 20 years. I was just over 15. We got together and said things could be done a whole lot differently. We wanted to see our clients' success with all of their money, not just what do I need to retire. There's so much more in our financial picture that we have to pay attention to. And a lot of times, we have to look at how we feel about money. What do we do with money? How does it affect the next generation? There's so many levels to that, just having a retirement plan doesn't necessarily make you successful along the way. And it doesn't guarantee that you're going to get where you need to go. So we developed Turning Tides, and it's been about almost 5 years now. So we're very excited. But Julianne, she's a CDFA, which is a certified divorce financial analyst. And she focuses on helping people transition through divorce. So when there's no other option and divorce is the only way to go, you're in a very big emotional state, making very big financial decisions. Mm-hmm. So Julianne comes alongside with you and your attorney and helps you along the way from start to finish and even after about what life is going to look like after. The decisions that you're making today are so important to know the effects that that's going to have, whether it's effects on taxes, effects on your income. And if you think of any time of stress in your life, we don't always make the best decisions when we're all worked up or upset or stressed, right? And so that's where she can really help, because that really turns your life upside down. And we always say we don't want an emotional crisis to become a financial crisis. So that's what Julianne specializes in. And then I specialize in the family financial planning and small business. So how to correlate your small business finances with your personal finances. How do we make those work together? And how do we make sure that, the family's communicating in the way that we need to for you, because everyone's different, everyone's style is different, our backgrounds are different, the way we were raised are different. And then coming together with those common goals and really outlining what that road's going to look like and being there for that accountability.
Yes, that's awesome. And I hear your kids in the background, so you're a parent. So, and that's okay. Hey, we're all working from home right now. And the fact of the matter is I felt so blessed to have crossed paths with you. It was such a God thing that you and Julianne came, your paths crossed mine. I was always reluctant to talk about money. I've said this on the air before that, my husband and I are frickin' frack, black and white, oil and vinegar, all of that. And money was something that, we just never really did a very good job of talking about, and certainly didn't do a good job about talking about planning our future. And your motto is live your life, plan your future. Mm-hmm. And you also, I heard you talk prior to my meeting you about a spending plan. And I'm like, spending plan? Now you're talking. I'm a spender in my family. And well, my husband spends too. But I mean, I definitely didn't. I always imagined someone who was a financial advisor talking about budgets. Who wants to talk about a budget? No one. A spending plan? Yes.
Yeah.
So we decided to go see you. I've said this to, 200 people, if I said it to one, is that we always thought a financial advisor would just, their motive would be to sell us insurance or sell us this or sell us that. And it was not that. So you have to explain the difference between you and someone who does that. But also, you asked about our goals right off the bat. And then literally without even knowing us, you gave us pages and pages and pages of notes in the first meeting, which, by the way, you give our listeners a free consultation. My jaw and my husband's jaw was on the ground when we walked out of there. We were like, what? How could we have gone this far in our life and not known what you just told us? So explain how you guys operate a little bit differently because you don't really sell.
Yeah. So we, like I said, we'll figure out what it is that you need for your family. We'll go out and find that. But, we charge by the hour, and we do give your listeners, when they come to us, what we call a strategy session. So a strategy session is where we sit down and we say, okay, where are we today and where are we trying to get to? And we take that 60 to 90 minutes and we just go through and outline that roadmap, right? And the difference is that we're working for you, right? I don't have someone saying to me, what did you sell this week? How many widgets did you get to? What are your commissions? So there's none of that. And that makes the world of difference. So we're advocating and working for you. And Robbie, I wouldn't say you guys were bad with money by any means. It's every person has a different relationship and money type, right? And the way, and it's just framing it and putting it together where it works together for the both of your good, and coming up with that, mapping out that plan for you. And that's what we focus mostly on. And how do we set up that communication plan, right? Because, I think a lot of times, they always say what anger is just hurt turned inwards, right? And we get our feelings hurt sometimes, or 99% of just a misunderstanding. So if we can set those communication lines up, especially in a family or with a husband and wife, and we set that dedication up going forward, that stress of money, like I used to dread having, the money talk with my husband, like, where are we on budget? What bills got paid? Where are we going? Like, that was so stressful for me. And I'm in this business. It shouldn't be that way. So, and it's just that I learned that we had two different styles and two different ways of doing things. A bill comes in, I want to pay it. I want it out the door. I don't want to have to worry about it. I don't want it sitting on the desk. I don't want to think about it. And my husband's like, well, it's our money. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to pay anything out until I absolutely have to, until I'm forced to, right? So we had to find that ground, that common ground that worked for both of us. And then after a while of consistently doing that and having the accountability to that weight and stress started to diminish. And when that got to diminish, and that wasn't such a burden or something I dreaded doing, lended itself and opened up into almost like this whole new path. So now we were able to, once we got through that, we're able to plan, right? So now we can dream about the future. Now we can say, okay, we really want to be here. How do we get from here to here? Right? And whatever that may be, for us, it was moving back to Buffalo. How do we get home? How do we sell our 2 houses in Delaware? It takes time, and it takes a lot of planning and mapping. And that's what we do. So we come alongside of you as an advisor. We're there to help you make those decisions along the way and help guide those conversations, and then give you the expertise that, we've learned over the last 15, 20 years, and give you, success stories that we were able to help with people, with ourselves, with other people. And it's completely confidential. So anything that we meet about, it stays in that office. It stays behind that door. It's never shared. So it gives you someone to go to, someone to bounce ideas off of, someone to get, some education out of. Not that you're not educated, but it gives you some of that expertise, right, in those areas.
Well, we need to talk about the way everything has changed since COVID-19 and what people need to be aware of. But before we go there, I just want to say that you make things so easy. that I had it, I don't have anxiety, but I had some apprehension, and I know my husband did as well, coming to, financial advisor. And you, not only did you make it easy for me to talk, but you made it so easy for my husband and for us to talk that I actually found out things about him that I had no idea he even thought in the 28 years I've been married about his views about money and our future. So I highly recommend everybody make the appointment, and we'll give you that number at the end of this episode. But with that said, we are all, the face of business has changed right now. Certainly our finances have changed right now. Many people are out of work or just going back to work, or displaced from their business or whatever it is. Katie, where in the world do we start?
It's a lot. There's a lot going on. And there's options out there. I hear a lot, especially like reading Facebook groups of people saying, well, I can't get unemployment, or I can't get an SBA loan, or, there's no one out there to help the micro businesses. And when people say small business actually means businesses that are actually larger than most that are actually true. So the micro businesses, the mom and pop shops, the small practices, things like that. There are options for us of that size that haven't been there in the past. I say reach out. We can figure something out. There's options. We can talk about it. This is a really unique period of time where if your business hasn't taken advantage of a program, we really need to be making sure that you do, and figuring out what the right one is for you, because there's pros and cons on both sides. And a lot of things are involved, like taxes and things like that. There's options with IRAs and retirement plans that we've never had before this year. That could be good or bad depending on your situation. And everyone's situation is so very different. It's not like, oh, I'm a small business owner, so this is what I should do. There's a lot that takes part in play in that, and we need to really get into that conversation to figure out what's right for you. So, and there are still loans out there for the small business loans. And I did speak with someone last week, and so I want to make sure I'm saying this right. When I say a small business, the PPP SBA loan is an option. The person said to me, well, I never looked into it because I don't want another loan. So there's options where that loan can be forgiven. And I want to, if you meet certain qualifications and you follow the rules. So I wanted to make sure that I point that out, because some people have said to me, well, I didn't want to bother talking about it because I don't want another loan. So there's ways to get that loan forgiven, and we can talk through and make sure we do it the right way. So I don't do the loans, but I have people that I can refer you to help you. But what I'm here to do is help you figure out what program or what avenue is best for you. And then we can get into the business side, which is where I get super passionate. I love working with small businesses and figuring out like where you're going to grow, or what's the best rate of return, and how can we structure things to do what it is that, God gave you the gift to do, and still be able to make it, functioning and profitable for your family.
Yeah, well, you've helped me and Jeff both on a personal level and professional level. And I still remember, Katie, the week that all this went down, Carrie, it was like she knew what was going through my head. Like, I have no idea what we do now. And Katie called and said, okay, let's talk. She said, this is available, this is available, this is available, this is available. You have these options. And it was just like, it took my stress level right down. Because Katie, I don't know who would have ever told us what you told us had you not told us that. I mean, honestly, I talked to other businesses, but I've talked to people at banks, and I've talked to tax people, and I've talked to this, and I literally did not get any information other than what you told me. Thank God that we connected when we did, because we were able to go through the last 3 months with some security, and that would not have happened had I not had that conversation with you.
I'd like to hit in a little bit different direction. And, there's a lot of people that during this time have actually wanted to start up their own business. A part of that's derived is either their employer is not going to open back up. So they've got to pivot and make a different decision, or they have a niche that is something that is now needed, whether they're great with technology and, and they're looking at online training, because there are just so many they're veering to that. So what would you say is available, or information. You talk about small business loans for current small businesses right now, but is there things available for someone that's maybe going to pivot and want to start a business because of the circumstances we're living in?
Yeah, and it's that's a tricky slope as far as, borrowing money to start a new business. There's a lot that goes into that. And that's probably the hardest type of financing to get, especially in today's world, right? So credit is getting tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. So it depends on the type of business. It depends on the person's history and background, right? It depends on what capital you're going to be putting in. So that is where we would sit down and kind of walk through what all of that looks like. And do you have a business plan? Because that's very, very important. If you're ever thinking about financing for business at any time, you need to have a good, solid business plan. You've got to walk in the door with your best foot forward. So we can help you figure all of those answers out. And then, coming up with a business structure, right? Do you become a DBA? Should you be an LLC? What's the difference between an S Corp and a C Corp? How does that benefit or not benefit you cost wise? And so we can help roll all of that out and play those scenarios out for you to help pick what's right for you. But I think it's a very interesting time because when things change, right? Change isn't always easy, but it gives us time to reflect. And I think that one of the biggest blessings I've seen, especially for me, coming out of this COVID, is it got to slow people down enough, to think about, what do I want? What can I do? What am I supposed to be doing? Right? What do I want life to look like going forward? And I think you're going to see a lot of changes in both the corporate world and the small business world and with individuals, and finding, especially maybe even with the schools, like finding that middle ground. It's going to be really interesting times. I'm actually kind of excited to see how that plays out.
Yeah, me too. And that's kind of what I'm seeing too. But it's interesting to know that there are opportunities in a time where most people think that there really isn't finances available or a structure, that you can still, in some niches, this is the best time to start a business because of what's there. It's just if you have the basis behind. So hopefully they're like Robbie and have already met with you and have been stable for a while if you're the one starting up by the sounds of it. But for those that don't, you would still sit down and talk with them, correct?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. So, and we have an open door policy. We'll sit down and talk about what works for you. It's a, non-judgmental, 100% confidential conversation. And I think that's what helps. And Robbie, you say a lot, we felt so comfortable, and it's because we're coming from a place. How can we help you? What can we do for you? And how can we help you move forward?
Yeah, it's invaluable information. And can you talk a little bit about retirement right now? Because I know there's a lot of people thinking about retirement, and before they even start entertaining the idea of collecting Social Security, they really should talk to someone like you or you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the Social Security is a really big decision. And when people say retirement, they think, oh, my 401, right? But it's so much more. It's, what's your health insurance going to look like? What does your mortgage and your debt look like? What does your estate plan and your will look like? How are your taxes going to change? Are you going to collect Social Security at 62, 65, 67, 70? What are your RMDs going to look like? What's your cost of living gonna be? And that changes. So, a lot of misnomer is that, well, I need my current income for the rest of my life. Well, that's not necessarily true. Most people spend about 60% more in the first 3 to 4 years of retirement than they do over the next 30. And I say 30 and people kind of chuckle, but in reality, like when I started in this business in like the late 90s, early 2000s, we would run retirement plans for people to live to 82, sometimes 84. Now, like we switched to running at 90s in like 2010, with people living to age 90. Now we're running to age 100.
Wow.
And people are living longer, but we have to plan. So much goes into that. It's not like, oh, I'm going to just do quick calculations on the computer. We have to factor in what inflation's going to be, time value of money. A dollar today is not going to buy what a dollar will in 5 years. And people are living so much longer. We have to stretch that money out even more so. So, when you learn this world and you go through the schooling and all of the testing and things, they teach you as you get closer to retirement, you get more and more conservative, and you should be the old standard was you be in bonds, by the time you're 62. That's not the world we live in anymore because of the life expectancies, because people are living longer. So now we need to pay a whole lot more attention to what investments we're investing in closer to retirement, because we still need to invest. We need to have what I call buckets. So we need to have our 30-year bucket, our 20-year bucket, our 10-year bucket. And those buckets look differently, but we have to have those layers of bucket. And in today's world, there's so many options out there. It's overwhelming for investment options or retirement options. So we really help you narrow down what the right risk is for you, because everyone is different on that. What those allocations look like, and truly understanding. And most people don't realize or see what the fees they're really paying are. There's fees in mutual funds and investments and retirements that you don't see, and there's ones that you do see. So we help you figure out exactly what it is that you're paying for what it is that you have. And if you take that and map that out over time, those dollars add up. That's money out of your pocket for down the road. So we'd find a happy correlation in that. And then back to the Social Security decision, like taking Social Security early is penalized. And that is a penalty not to be taken lightly. And it's not, sometimes we have to take it. There's no other choice, or it is the best choice, but we need to be able to run those numbers. And it depends on that person and their situation and everything else that goes into play with that, and taxes and so forth. It's important to sit down and have that conversation before making that decision.
What's early? Before 67, you're saying?
62. Well, it depends on when you were born.
Okay.
So they'll say on your second page of your Social Security statement at the top, it'll say full retirement age.
Right.
So for like me, it's 67. For I don't remember the year. If you're born before a certain year, it's like 66 in 2 months or 66 in 4 months. So on that, it'll say on there what your full retirement age is. Anything early, there's a calculation that's done, and it's a multi-layer calculation that where you get less for taking it earlier than that age.
But there is a break-even point, isn't there, if you live longer? I don't know how that works. I don't know, honestly.
Yeah, it depends on the person, and we use an algorithm, and thank goodness, thank God for software.
Yeah, right, exactly. But these are things that people need to figure out. And I've had people say also to me, Katie and Carrie, that, well, because I brag up you to everybody. And so I've had people say, yeah, well, you and Jeff have money and we don't, so we really don't need to talk to somebody. And I say, well, first of all, I mean, we all have money, right? Okay. But if you feel like you don't have money, why not? That's one of the main reasons you need to talk to Katie, because you are going to have to retire at some point. And even, Raquel or Chanel, our daughter Chanel, graduating from med school, she was so, you think your kids aren't listening when you're talking to each other.
They're always listening.
She was listening, and she went ahead and made her own appointment with you when she was graduating from med school, and to get a jump on trying to plan for her future with her med school loans, which was, it was comforting to Jeff and I that she did that. Hey, she really was listening. How important it is to go to a financial advisor. But as I said, I've heard you say that before. If someone thinks that they don't have money, well, need to find out why you don't. I mean, why you don't have a bucket that you can tap into when you need to at times like COVID-19.
Yeah.
It's, what, I mean, on your Facebook page, on Turning Tides Financial Facebook page, you guys post things constantly. Everything's changing so quickly. Not only that, I encourage people to go to your website at turningtidesfinancial.com and sign up for your newsletter, because you guys have a lot of information there too. Talk more about some of the things that people need to plug into right now.
Yeah, I mean, now we have this downtime, and we don't know how much longer it's going to last, right? But we still have a little bit of downtime left. Let's really grab it. Let's grab this time by the horns, and let's figure out what is it that we didn't like from before, and how can we change it going forward, right? So if you go to our website, we actually have a section called worksheets, and on there you actually can do your spending plan. And you can do, should I have life insurance? How much life insurance do I need? But there are helpful calculations, and we do this together when we meet and so forth. But if someone wanted to do it on their own, they can do that. But it's take the time to make the appointment, right? Let's sit down and have the conversation. I promise I don't bite. So, but it's, and even if you don't have money, it's how can we get you out of debt, right? How can we make sure your children or your family is protected? How can we start to build those foundational blocks so that a time in the future you will have those opportunities? We all start somewhere. We didn't all start with money, right? We worked it up and we saved it up and we made those changes in that progress. But it takes work. It takes the courage to, most people have a lot of anxiety about money. I see that a lot. And we work on that. But if we can get over that fear, that initial fear, and make that appointment, then that's where we can start. And then we can go from there.
Well, there's two things I know. Knowledge is power, and you cannot manage what you don't measure. Whether it's your finances or your weight, right? I tell my patients that, like, you cannot manage what you don't measure. And so I was the one that never balanced my checkbook and never paid attention to anything. And, but things have changed. And you realize when you work so hard all your life, you need to know what's happening, right? And you need to manage it so that you don't have to work so hard at the later part of your life.
I love when we can get them young, right? When we can get the Chanels of the world, because we can say, okay, we all look back at life and say, woulda, shoulda, coulda. If I would have known then what I know now, how things would be differently, right? But I love when I get to work with like my clients and their children, right? And I say children, but 20s, because we can set them up early. We can say, okay, we're going to start saving for retirement now, so you never miss that money, right? So, and it's funny how much less you have to save when you look at the calculations when you start in your 20s than if you start in your 30s or 40s. It's amazing how the time value of money really plays out. But not only that, but we can help teach as far as what standard of living should I have? How much money should I be spending? And I have a rule of thumb that I use, and I'll share with you guys if you have a few more minutes. I call it the 50-20 rule. 50% of the money that you take home, right? Because when you're in your 20s, you don't think about taxes and withholding and all of that. So I focus on what you're physically taking into your account, right? So 50% of that should be used for your bills, your car insurance, your car payment, your rent, your mortgage, those types of expenses, your utilities, your food. 20% you pay yourself. That's money that you can go and spend on vacations, on holidays, on Christmas gifts, birthday gifts, whatever it is that you want to do, your hobbies, all of those fun things. 10% goes to tithing and 20% goes to savings. So, and that savings include those 401k contributions, those HSA contributions, and all, and your regular savings and emergency accounts. So that's where we start. And then that gets them kind of on the right path or the right foot of starting out, of saying, okay, I'm always going to do my tithing. And you'd be surprised in over 17 years, the difference in the people that tithe and don't, who have money in the end and who pay in taxes and who get refunds. It's eerily strange, but not, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But it just gets them, in some years that'll change, right? When you buy a house, you spend a little bit more. When you have a baby, you spend a little bit more. Life happens, but we start to plan for that ahead of time.
I love that, because that was one thing I wanted you to hit with the younger generation, because with my daughter just getting her master's and now facing the student loan and adding that in, and she'd been working full time all the way through, but it's still a reality hit when that happens. And thankfully she started doing some planning a little bit, but it's still another bill she's adding, so she's got to figure something out. I would love her to come talk to you too, just because I love how you just broke down that 50-20 rule, because it has a little bit of flexibility, but it really puts you on a spending plan, not a budget plan in their minds. And that's sometimes mindset of how they're viewing what you're telling them could make the difference on whether they're going to listen or not. What, like you said, if you start in your 20s as opposed to your 30s or 40s, they're never going to miss the money that they never had to use anyway, where we're already using that money, and now all of a sudden it's being taken in our minds away to be put to retirement. It's harder that way than it is the other way of always just putting it there.
Yeah. And we know, ultimately it's all God's, right? I mean, so we do have a responsibility to manage it and to spend it wisely and not, of course, we know that the love of money is the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. The money should not be our motivation. And he will give us the desires of our heart if we put our faith and trust in him alone. So I love that about you, Katie, that you are, passionate Christ follower as well. You just have some amazing gifts. I have to tell you have some amazing gifts that God's given you. And I'm just so grateful that he's using you for his kingdom, because he is. It's awesome to see. So in our final minutes here, tell people where they can get a hold of you and what next steps are.
Sure. So you can check us out on our website. It's turningtidesfinancial.com. You can check out our Facebook as well. Our phone number is 716-800-4290. I'm extension 301, Julian's 300, doesn't matter, 6 don't have dozen on the other, but leave us a message. We'll call you right back if we don't answer. And then, or you can email us at info@turningtidesfinancial.com.
Awesome. Now, what happens, because people will be listening outside of New York State too? I know that you have clients outside of the state, so you are familiar with, different areas as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we have multiple licenses in multiple states, and financial planning, there are small portions of tax law that are state specific, but in general, we work with, I think almost every state. I'd have to check and see. But yeah, so we do Zoom calls. We can do phone calls, conference calls, whatever works for you. And then we go from there.
Awesome. Well, I feel on my heart that I just want to pray for our listeners right now. And I'm just so grateful for this time. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time together with Katie and Carrie. And Lord, I just thank you that you're using Katie in such a mighty way, Lord, to help us to be good stewards of what you've given us, Lord. You've entrusted us, Lord, with what we have, and everything we have comes from you, Lord Jesus. And we just want to honor you, not only with our bodies, but also with our finances and what you've given us, Lord. And I just ask that you continue to use Katie in a mighty way for your kingdom and to help us to manage what we have. And help, your word says that you know the plans you have for us to prosper us and not harm us, and to give us hope in the future. And we're clinging to that truth, Lord, during this time right now. I just ask that you bless all of our listeners. And Lord Jesus, just help us to remember that you are sovereign. You've got it. You're God, the God of the universe that created the world and everything in it, including us. You've got it. In Jesus' holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Katie Weibel. Katie Weibel, so much for joining us from Turning Tides Financial. Say hi to Julian Lipo. I know we'll be talking really soon.
Thank you, Carrie, too.
Thank you for tuning into The Real Raw Truth. We hope to see you next week. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram, and sign up for our newsletter at RobbieRaw.com.